Hello my quilting friends, Leah Day here with a quick design video. Yesterday I shared a video about how I design a whole cloth quilt, and I received a great question on YouTube from Travis Rogers about how to take it from paper essentially to actually marking fabric. What is the process of getting it from a sketch to a full-size design? So I've shot another video with my camera glasses so you can see the process. So here's where we left off yesterday with the design drawn, and I know that this one's my favorite, and I want to get this into the computer in some way so that way I can start working on it. So the simplest way that I found is just snap a picture of it with my iPhone and then upload the photo using Dropbox. You can also scan it in the image if you have a scanner. Any which way works fine, and you can see here I have the image in my computer, and then I have drawn these lines over it, and I worked with just 1/4 of the image, and I sized everything down to 6 inches. So I'm just working with a 6-inch little segment here. Now as far as drawing it, I'm using Serif Draw Plus, and my program's a little outdated, so I'm sure that you could get a better one, a better version of Draw Plus. This is X4. It still does a very good job of graphic drawing. And let me make this invisible so that way you can see the drawing just a little bit better. There we go. And basically over here, you work with all your assets, all the different things that you're working with, and you can group them together. And basically how this is created is a simple copy and paste and rotated. It's just copy, paste, rotate, and that ensures that it's going to be a symmetrical shape. So here I have like these lines. That was created with the circle. I split the circle into that little segment, copied and pasted, created the second line, copied and pasted, created the second line, the third line, copied and pasted one more time, created the fourth line, combined all of them together in what's called a group. Then I copied and pasted, and I flipped it and rotated it to create this shape. And I will say I did not have these broken up. I did not have them interlocking in the beginning. I waited until everything was done completely before I started breaking them into pieces. I wanted it to be solid before I did that. So that's how I created the lines. I did the same thing for these longer lines, just a series of 4 lines here, copy, pasted, rotated, created the second set. And because I'm working with this 6-inch shape, I can make sure that I'm staying square and on track. And that was really important. The sun took a little bit more time, a little bit of fiddling, because I'm also working with the center sun motif, which you can see here, and these rings, these interlocking rings. I wanted to get this right first, and I felt like that was important to get that piece right first, and then I could just grab this whole thing as one unit, copy, paste it, put it right here, and then it would be a lot less work. I don't have to sit there and draw 2 of them. I just worry about the one in the center because the corners are basically the identical motif. It's a little bit different if I wanted the corners to be bigger or the corners to be smaller, but I like to keep it simple, and I really like that look, so that's what I stuck with. So once I get it drawn as, basically 1/4, I then increase the size, and this is another important thing because I want to make sure that this returns back to a normal situation. You have to keep everything labeled, otherwise you will not know what anything is. It'll be just a whole bunch of random lines, and grouping, keeping everything grouped, keeping everything nice and neat and clean is super, super important. So from here, copied and pasted, created all 4 corners, and I basically have a 12-inch version of the quilt. There it is, centered up. And so the next part of the process, for me at least, comes into what size will the finished quilt be? Because I'm not making a 12-inch square. That would be a little bit too tiny for how close these lines are together. I am going to be making a 30-inch quilt. So I'll just show you how I scale this up. It's actually going to be 35 inches. And so to create this, I just grouped everything together and just told the program to basically scale it up. And that's how it became this big. So this is 35 inches, and the question really becomes, are the lines spaced the way I want them to be spaced? When this is printed out and it's my finished quilt, are those lines going to be, maybe a 1/2 of an inch or 3/4 of an inch apart? Are they going to be too wide? And so the best way to know is just start printing out some test copies. And so this is just a test copy of the center. And this was actually, I decided to change the center from a spiral to, you can see the interlocking circles, the concentric circles. That was just a design change right at the last minute. And so I printed out these test samples just to check the spacing of these lines. That looked really good. So I knew I was on the right track, and I knew 35 inches was going to make a really, really nice quilt. And at that point, I started doing the background fill. And this is a very, very dense grid. And those lines are 1/4 inch apart. And I usually do this when it's full size, just so I know that the lines are going to be correctly spaced for the size of the quilt. The reason why I want them that tight is so that that becomes obviously the background. This becomes obviously the main motif. And whenever I go to make this into a quilt, I might even fill in some of these lines with few more lines just to make it, pop a little bit better. Maybe every other one I'll put an extra 2 lines in there. But that doesn't necessarily even have to be drawn. When it comes to actually making the quilt, if you were to make one, you don't have to quilt on every single line. It's kind of nice to have them if you want to. Dense, intense cross-hatching like this does take forever, but it is super beautiful. So ultimately, it was a really, really fun experience. And then now the last step is just to print it out, double check that it's looking good. You can see here I've already printed out several pages. Looks like it's going to fit on roughly 20-25 pages. We'll trim them down and tape them all together, and that is how I basically go from a drawing to a full-size whole cloth design. And this is how I make most of my quilts. So that's it for this video. This is how I design most of my quilts, even if they're not symmetrical, even if they are, like Goddess quilt that's flowy and all over the place. I usually start with the sketch, take a picture of it, put it on my computer program, draw it, group things together, keep it very organized, upsize it to the size that I like, and print it out. That is a series of steps. And it's very simple. And the nice thing is I then have that file created and ready to go. And if ever I want to turn it into a quilt pattern or put it in a book, then it's there and ready for me. It's also wonderful because I can create quilts of any size. I'm not limited to the size that I draw the design. When I first started designing quilts, I basically drew the quilt at full size, and that was very limiting because sometimes I wanted to make it slightly smaller, or then it just ended up getting way huge and out of control, and I had no ability to resize it. And so working on the computer program, while it's tedious and slow, and you can see on my design days, I do not comb my hair or do my makeup. It's tedious, it's slow, it's a pain in the butt, but ultimately it ends up with a file that is so much easier to use, and I can print as many times as I need to, whenever I need to. And that is really an excellent way to design. So that's it for this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. Please share feedback on the filming, the camera glasses, what you think. And if you'd like to see something else or you have a question, I may just film a video real quick to answer your question. So let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to share, like the video. That helps me out a lot. Until next time, let's go quilt. So again, we did a little bit more play. And this one is right now my favorite, and you can see I drew this as a full quarter so that way I could see more of it.